So tell us, Subbu, how did you manage to build a unicorn in one of the most challenging spaces, but still they are the biggest contributors to the Indian economy, and you're creating a user experience working with diverse industries. I'm sure audience also will have a lot of questions about this. Would love to hear from you.
I think at this point in time, the tag unicorn, not every founder is very happy about it. So it's just a vanity number. And, as we were discussing earlier, what we would like to be known for is what we have done in this domain. As you correctly said, it's a very, very difficult market. A traditional industry, not just in India, across the world, highly fragmented on both sides, especially the supply side fragmentation makes it even more difficult. And no presence of technology at all for the reasons known to everyone, right? So high fragmentation, people participating in this chain, they are not really literate to a great extent. So technology doesn't get appreciated by them so easily, right? So and most of the players have been there for decades. So coming in and making the change, it's not going to be easy. So in that context, what we are really proud of is the changes that we have, the role that we have, positive role that we have played in bringing this change. Right? And I will start with this example where the Indian government introduced demonetization and also say GST, then e-tolling. Right? These are, for trucking industry, these were three important events in the last 6-7 years, and that fortunately coincided with us coming into the picture as well. So when you have millions of truck owners sitting in remote locations, not really wanting to embrace technology, here's the government coming in trying to do these things. Right? And every participant had to play their role in accelerating this. Today, if you see out of more than say 4 million overall truck owners in the country, and in long haul trucking where you have more than 1.5 million truck owners, Blackbuck as a company has been able to bring more than 1 million truck owners onto the platform into the digital world, transacting every month. That is something that we are really proud of. While the million number in a B2C context may not be a great thing to do, but in a B2B context, especially in trucking, this is a very, very challenging aspect. Right? So just to make the audience understand, I would define the persona of a typical truck owner, right? Somebody who's sitting in, say, Ganganagar in a remote place, having trucking as a secondary business. Probably he's running a sweet shop, and then he's also into agriculture and also having a truck. And because of the fact that reaching out to the shippers directly, it is not possible. There are multiple intermediaries, and he has to depend on those intermediaries. Therefore, he has formed his own private network over a period of time, his own linkages, and has been dealing with these linkages for decades, and he doesn't want this to get really disturbed at all, right? And when the demonetization got introduced, everything was happening on cash. 90 to 95% of the transactions, including the freight payments to the truckers, largely happening on cash, because the industry involves 80% of advance kind of a concept, right? So it was cash payments. And at that point in time, to quickly move into a digital mode of payment, industry was struggling. And we had come into the picture almost a year earlier. And from day one, we were doing digitized payments to the automated payments to the truck owners, right? So to help them get into this mode, whether it is toll payments, at that point in time toll was not there, but fuel payments, very important, right? How do we actually help them with digital payments for fuel through a simple mechanism? That was the biggest challenge at that point in time. Reach out to all these truck owners, the guy who's sitting in Ganganagar, make him understand that it is a very safe transaction, help him with the transaction, create that trust, and so that he eventually moves to digital payments and not having to depend on the driver carrying the cash and then going and doing a transaction at a fuel pump. Today, all he has to do is to load the money into his wallet with a click of a button and not really worry about anything else, including whether the money being used for the right purpose or not by the drivers. That's the change that we have actually, where we have played a part. Similarly, when tolling also happened, right, and the mandate was fast approaching, ensuring that, especially in the long haul trucking, if you really see today, I think the toll spend is around 3,700 or 4,000 crores of toll spent in India every month, out of which 75 to 80% is trucking, and that's the largest component for the government of India as well. And so many, the millions of trucks, roughly last quarter, closer to 2.6 million or 2.7 million of trucks transacting through e-tolling. Converting them to this was a challenge, and those people were not ready. So we invested quite a lot in terms of reach, persuading them, educating them very importantly, and hand-holding them for quite some time so that they get used to these kind of payments. And therefore, today, if you really see, 1/3 of India's tracking toll payments, whether it is number of trucks or the number of users, it goes through our platform. These are the things I would say, Rahul, that we are very proud of, rather than the tag of unicorn, which is just an outcome. And in many cases, you will find that it's not always justified. Right? So we have to do a lot to get there. It is still, those 7 years, it is still a long way for us to reach there. Right? So for us, it's just an outcome. Yeah.
Like you rightly said, the government also played some role. But more importantly, it's not an easy journey, especially when we talk about this blue-collar workforce who are using red and green button. Right? That's the only purpose they use mobile. Right? I think over a period of time, so WhatsApp, YouTube, and a bunch of other social media platforms, their engagement has increased. But help us understand, how do you use technology and how do you ensure that they use technology? Most importantly, your scaling efforts, your training efforts, bringing in consistency.
Yeah.
Right? It's not an easy journey. Right? Building these sort of things is not an easy journey. You can help us understand.
Yeah. So the same toll example, right? For many of us, it might sound very trivial, but it was not easy when the government actually started. Even banks were not ready. The tech was not ready by the banks, NPCI, all others. So if you have a system, and unlike us, for example, where we do a Google Pay transaction and the payment doesn't go through and the money gets stuck, 200 rupees or 500 rupees getting stuck and it gets released after some time, we may be okay with that, right? And but for a truck owner, it is very difficult. He actually lives on a hand-to-mouth situation, and if that particular payment gets stuck for even 2 hours or 3 hours, the kind of restlessness and stress he would go through, you can't really imagine, right? And when tolling started, the success rate of payments, it was not great. Because most of these people were having bank accounts in very small banks, and they were not really, in terms of all these aspects, the digital payments, they were not really there. So working with banks, then working with NPCI, working with, for example, if it is an IDFC tag or an ICICI bank tag, really working with all these participants to ensure that it is a smooth and seamless flow. It hasn't been easy, and we have really worked hard in terms of bringing out all the problems, solving these problems along with these participants, and then making it easier so that the trust improves for the truck owner and he is willing to do this. Right? Just to give you an idea, I don't know how many of you would have gone through as a car owner. In the initial period, when you cross basically the toll station, wrong deductions, or basically the money multiple, there were so many problems, right? And if that money gets stuck, even today, if you go through the bank process, it takes even 30 days to get that money back. right? And 30 days for a truck owner, even if it is, let's say, 500 rupees, it is a large number. What we have done, having worked with multiple banks and also solving the problem, today it takes 3 hours for us to automate that chargeback and pay the money back. And that develops lots of trust so that he is willingly coming in and say that I will do the digital payments, right? So that is one aspect that I would actually really highlight. It might sound easy for people, but then it is a lot of work in terms of working with banks, MBCI, working with the truck owner himself to really understand and give him that kind of experience.
Also at volumes.
At volumes. So today, if you really see 1 million truck owners actually transacting, and the number of, each truck would have roughly 3 swipes in a day, and if you say 20 days, it's 60 swipes he's going through, right? And then if there's basically closer to a million and a half of trucks, if you really see, then that number is a huge number, right? And managing almost zero, defaults, that is going to be critical, right? And given the hand-to-mouth situation and the money flow, that's going to be extremely critical. That's what we have actually done as a giving that seamless experience. Along with that, there have been lots of other things. Right? So, for example, the country and tracking as a domain, it's extremely cost sensitive. So, if you look at a simple example of even IoT, GPS, it has been there for quite a long period. But what kind of devices that are getting used? It's always very cheap devices, 700, 800 rupee devices. That's what the market is ready to accept. Now, in this case, what value add you can go and do, how you can actually improve the uptime, the accuracy, and also help him manage the fleet in a better way. You would know this better. With these low-cost devices, right? Some of these problems are automatically solved if you actually put a 5,000 rupee device. These problems would not even come into the picture. But you have to work with 700 rupee device and still make these things happen. That's where the challenge lies, right? And that's what we focus on, and we have been attempting to deliver as a company to give this kind of experience, right? Whether network is there or not. And with the available data coming out from these low-cost devices, how do I actually massage the data or read it in the right way to give him more value-added information, whether it is driving behavior or mileage-related information, so that he can take the right calls, and also educating him to get used to this kind of information and take the right calls. That's the investment that we have been making as a company. Got it.
Can you throw some light on the vernacular technology that you have built? Because I've been witnessing whenever you go out in the logistics market, I've been interaction with the fleet owner. One thing that differentiates Blackbuck is they don't have a language barrier, right? You're able to transact so seamlessly in one time. Yeah. So can you throw some light on this?
Yeah. So this plays a larger role in our domain, right? A driver, for example, would like to stick to the same lane, mainly because he has a language problem, right? And also because of the food preferences that he would have. Right? And if he goes to a new location and if he doesn't know the routes and he doesn't even know how to actually interact and get that information, it becomes difficult. So largely, people have become lane specific. The optimization in this area would be far better if we become lane agnostic. For that, we have to make things easier for the truck owner, and we have to make things easier for the driver, right? And language plays a very important role here in terms of the confidence itself that the driver or the owner would get when you give these support them in these aspects, right? So we have multi-language. Today at this point in time we have around 7 app being supported by 7 different languages. More than that, right? We have to understand the persona of our target customers. They are not like you and I, where we we really look forward to many changes in the app, whether it is WhatsApp or any other tool or Google or anything that we use. We like changes, but this audience are not used to continuous learning and these changes. It's not going to be. If I make a simple change in the flow also, they need support to understand how it is working. Otherwise, he will just go away. He will not use the product. Right? So flow, how basically we make it easier in terms of readability. We really see, unlike any other B2C app, ours you will see the fonts, really large fonts, right? Very few things, color coded, multiple languages, and very importantly, voice code, right, in the local language. That makes it easier for them. And it's not just for the supply side. I think just talking about the truck owners, but even on the demand side, where there are multiple small and medium enterprises, the shippers, small shippers, small transporters, small brokers. For all of them, we need to make it easier so that they come back and use it. Right? The larger problem for the demand side is to find the right discoverability, right? Discovery in terms of the truck availability as well as the price, very important. Right? Given the fact that we have a huge supply, almost 1 million truck owners on the platform, pan-India presence, it becomes much easier for them to discover. Right? And also trusted partners being on the platform where they are verified and they are able to, they are continuously transacting. All these information, it goes to the shippers to create that trust. As I said, they all have been doing the business for decades with their own private network. Now we need to come back and come to them and say that you use the digital network and it will give you a far, much better reach and nothing breaks. You can still have the same level of trust or a higher trust. Then these are the things that that have been really, the investments have gone from our side and it's not so easy. It's quite challenging.
Sure. So coming back to the demand side, Subbu, it's you work with various industries. So your platform is industry agnostic and expectations from the customer are different. Right? From a small scale customer, the customer is also running neck to neck. From their business fulfillment perspective, how do you ensure that DATs are fulfilled at the same point of time? This visibility is given to the customer.
Yeah.
More importantly, from a technology side, what sort of value addition does the tech bring in?
No, it's a very valid question. Right? It is basically, today everything happens over the phone largely, right? And they are in a hurry. And if you ask them to actually get into a situation where there is a bidding and then he's constantly looking at the phone to really find out, all these things will not work. Right? You have to make things simple and faster for him. And technology, trust me, technology plays a very large role. Even in GPS, for example. You have sold a GPS device to a truck owner. Now it has to be installed very fast. That depends on where the truck is and how fast we can actually ensure that the installation happens. We might have a physical presence in the network, but then we need to still deploy technology at the service engineer level to ensure, verify and do things faster. A truck goes to a tolling station, but then the toll tag is not working. We should be able to replace the toll much faster. Again, in terms of physical presence that we have would help to a great extent, but still technology for the same team to really verify fast, to do the replacement fast. This plays a very, very large role in getting these things done. Right? What was the first question? Sorry,
I'm talking about how do you serve the customers? These are industry agnostic, right? And more importantly, the scale of the customers, from a small scale to a large scale. So how do you manage and differentiate?
Yeah. So, it's basically, at this point in time, if you really see one thing that we have taken, especially on the supply side, is that a clear focus on small guys. A clear focus on small guys. There are large fleet owners, but that percentage is very, very small. We don't cater to that segment. It makes lots of sense for us to keep focusing on one large segment and cater to that need completely and deliver. At the same time, now I remember the question that you were attempting to ask earlier, is that how do I, the tag part of it, how do I use technology? Right? So there, I was giving the example of not just for people, but also for our own people trying to help them, right? Deploying the technology ways. But on the other hand, if you see, if a demand, a shipper comes to the platform to quickly find a truck, in terms of actually using the technology to show the most relevant trucks to him on the screen. And just first 5 options, he should be able to select the right truck. First few calls he makes, he should be able to close the transaction, right? Rather than, the person having to go through multiple options, multiple calls, and finally getting it, right? So this is the problem statement for us. So we today, from the time a shipper posts a load on the platform, the first call that reaches, that goes to the shipper, the relevant call, it is in few minutes. And conversion actually in 3 hours of time, we get to the conversion stage. And that happens mainly because of curation with very, very large supply and exact location of these trucks. Not necessarily that every truck is fitted with GPS, but we use all the data points available, whether it is tolling data, the GPS data, the SIM card reading of the driver. Use all these information to really figure out where the truck is, and then match it faster, and then give him the most relevant options within that, so that he doesn't have to go through all these, spend more time, right?
They can focus on their business.
They can focus on their business. And that is important because they work with their private network. And when they actually come for additional option, it is a very important need for them. And you need to help them close it faster. And you need to close it in such a way that it is coming with a trusted party so that they can start believing in this network more and more. There the technology being used and the amount of basically data being crunched to give them that kind of experience, without technology it will be very different. Then you end up being a small player with few options and few linkages that will not scale.
Right. So we've heard a lot about your business and the journey that you have gone through, more from a startup perspective. But help us understand, but more importantly, how does your day look like? And you are building technology in a most stressful environment. Logistics is the most stressful and undervalued environment, right? So how do you manage to cope up with stress, and how do you manage to kind of, wake up with that energy and go back to work?
I think, the first and foremost thing is that, the problem that you're addressing, if it is quite large, and the possibility to make a difference is, huge. You will get up motivated every day, right? There are battles that you need to fight every day. That goes without saying for everyone, whether you are an entrepreneur or an executor. This happens on a daily basis. What makes it, apart from the problem that you're addressing and the energy that you get out of it, apart from that, the most important thing that we have seen is to, as a core, as a founding team, having people who are like-minded, having the same value and fabric, that makes a huge difference, right? So that there are people around you to support, right? One might go down, but then there is another person who will pull you up, and then to share, not just the burden, but also when you go through these kind of things, it makes it much easier. Not just the founding team, but also the core team. Beyond a point, when you become bigger, the founding team and core team, difference it starts blurring, right? It is basically one or two people cannot make a difference, right? In our case, 3 people cannot make a difference. It has to be 10 odd people will have to make the difference. So that, having a strong core team, like-minded, as I said, the same. That's where you spend lots of time to get there, right? How you bring these people in, how you retain them, what kind of opportunity and exposure you give for them to also achieve their aspirations, that makes a big difference. So stress the way to unwind for us is that keep spending more time with the team. And of course, individual time is also important. So take time either to learn or do the things that you would like. So in my case, I like watching movies, so I'll watch movies, and that helps.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So any questions from the audience?
So the same model that we are doing in India, we are trying to replicate outside. But see, we are very clear. We are building for one, and we have invested quite a lot in India. Some of the things that we see in India, it might be specific to India, right? It is given the dynamics of this country, lots of things that we are solving, it might be specific and it might take much longer than one would have imagined. Right? So our focus is largely, I would say 99.5% is India. What we are attempting outside is more from learning perspective and also see how a developed market would look like, so that when India gets there, we are well, prepared to grab that opportunity. Right? But focus would always remain be on India. So our attempts outside India, it's still not at a stage where we can say that we are doing something big. So I would focus more on India. Right? So that's the current context. But we are attempting the same thing in what we are doing in India in a smaller way also, very small. Yeah, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
And use the technology. Now, there is so much in India who are also again tech averse. There are people who are trying to break the barriers with them. What did you do to them, talk to them directly or indirectly to tell them that, hey, it's okay, we're here for you and we're going to take care of you? What were the things that you said?
So, as it is generally mentioned by many entrepreneurs, it is about, in this case, it's about doing lots of non-scalable things to get that done, right? In our case, the example I would give is that we have close to 8,000 touch points on ground, going and really persuading them, educating them, and handholding to get into the digital world. They might be using WhatsApp, but they are not used to deploy technology or apply technology for doing business. And when it and ours is a very large ticket size, right? So one frame could be anywhere between 50,000 to even 1,50,000. Right? So if the transaction is at that level and if anything goes wrong, he's really stuck. And the margins are pretty tight. Right? So from that perspective, really giving them that confidence. It takes lots of getting a lot of confidence. Having more people on the ground will not scale beyond a point, right? But we have people only to get them on board. Once he is there, your ability to digitally retain that customer and give him that experience, give him that trust so that he keeps coming back, and becomes much easier, right? So I would say in this case, having so many touch points, doing again and again, just to give you an idea, the first payment he will not do with his bank. He will ask our person to put in our money and see whether it is happening or not. Then he will put his own money and he will not leave you, right? He will not allow you to go. When the transaction finishes, then he will say yes. After that, he will still not do the next transaction. The person will again go and push it, nudge it, right? Once he crosses 3-4 transactions, he gains more confidence. And or he would do even another, I would say in our way, in our view, another not so preferable option. He will ask his daughter or son to do it, which we don't want. My main decision maker is that truck owner. I want him to use the app. I don't want his son or daughter to use the app, which is not scalable again, right? So we have to spend time in terms of persuading them and really making this happen, and that requires lots of investment, even if it is not scalable. So my answer to your question is the vernacular aspect and voice chats, all those things easy to do, very easy to do. This is very tough to do.
Yeah. So how long did it take you? Because I'm sure
To be very honest, it is 3 years for us, but we were hugely supported by the government mandate of e-tolling, right? Demonetization. If these things had not happened, it would have taken a longer time to do, right? It would have taken a longer time to do. So in our case, the mandate helped to a great extent. If he doesn't do it, then he spends more money. That kind of a mandate makes it in a way easier, but still helping him get there is not so easy. That's why today we are also proud of the fact that small truck owners in remote locations, we have the highest penetration. We have the highest penetration, and that requires, if somebody takes a view in terms of cost of acquisition to the lifetime value of that customer, a strict equation would have not made it possible. But we consciously took that call and made that investment. So time and investment and doing it early enough makes a big difference. Just to give you an idea, before the mandate came, we started investing. After the mandate, the cost of acquisition and the lifetime value worked favorably to us. But had we waited for the mandate to happen, we would not have actually gained so much. So it is, the initial period investment is far higher. Then it gets easier. But if you miss that initial investment and try to do it at a later point in time when somebody has done it, then the cost of doing it is even much higher. So it is better to do at the earliest point in time itself to optimize your investments.
Thank you, sir. I think what you have done already, especially with the 8,000 touch points, is fabulous. I work a lot in the culture space, and I know how long some people take to just even let you into their, their space. So congratulations. Thank you so much for making Bharat your priority.
Thank you.